Manchester United see Ederson as the perfect midfielder for Amram's rebuild, and there are fresh links to striker Retegui. Ruben Amram has confirmed that Amad Diallo is getting closer to full fitness, so could he return for the Bilbao clash? United are interested in veteran goalkeeper Joan Oblak and have made a move for Espanyol's Joan García. Plus, Fabrizio Romano confirms that Antony and Rashford will not be expected to play for United again, and the Matheus Cunha deal is getting closer. This is all the latest Manchester United news and transfer news that will keep you up to date with everything. Welcome to the channel. My name is Jamie. Before we get into it, smash a like on the video, and let's jump straight into it. So let's kick off with the injury update. So Ruben Amram in his press conference said that Amad Diallo, Dilap and Aiden Heaven are all getting closer to fitness. Amad and Matha are near. Aiden is not ready. That's it. So Amad Diallo closer to getting back to full fitness. Obviously brought you the news the other day from Romano saying that he's, expected back in first team training this week, hopefully. Which is positive. It's good that Dilap might be on his way back as well, because he's been he's been a warrior, I think, at the back for us this season. We're going to need him in the games coming up as well. And the Aiden Heaven's quite not ready. Remember, he had a setback with his injury. So that's a bit of a shame, because it would have been nice to give Aiden Heaven a bit more minutes maybe before the Bilbao clash as well. But it is what it is. And then on Amad, Romano also said that Amad Diallo will try to be ready for the first leg against Bilbao or the second leg as well. Again, it would depend on his fitness. I don't think they're going to rush him back. But if he's ready, he's ready. If he's back in full first team training, it will depend on he might be available on the bench to get some minutes. I do think we need to be a bit careful though with Amad, because we don't want him to break down, and we want him, minimum available for the start of next season, or to help take him on pre-season and stuff. So we don't want to make things worse. But if he's back in training, he would have been cleared by the medical experts and the doctors and stuff at United. So if he's back in training, it'll just be about managing his minutes, because obviously he's been out for a few months now as well. But I think that's massively positive to potentially have an Amad Diallo back, especially if he can make it for the Bilbao clash as well, because realistically not really much to play for in the Premier League for the rest of the season. It's all about those Europa League games as well, and with the kind of mounting injuries that we've got at the moment, obviously Xerxes out rest of the season. Diego Dallo out injured now as well. There's a bit of a kind of blow, because it's just, Dilip's been out injured, Aiden Heaven's out injured, Martinez gone. I mean, like, the players are dropping like flies right at the worst possible time. So we are up against it a little bit in terms of the Europa League. So to get Amad back would be really good. But just on Dallo, he is out injured. Hamstring injury, no, calf injury, I think it was, Amram said in his press conference. But he did an interview on MUTV today saying that we can't say that Diego Dallo will miss the rest of the season, because he will work hard to help us in the last games. But he's going to be out for the match tomorrow, which is a bit of a kind of blow. But it might be a blessing in disguise, because while one door closes, another one could potentially open to see, maybe Harry Amas and Dorgu kind of start again. I thought Amas was brilliant against Wolves on that left-hand side, and Dorgu I thought looked actually all right on the right-hand side as well, put some lovely balls into the box and created some kind of moments as well. So maybe we're going to see that again, or would it be an opportunity for, Camison? There's reports that Camison didn't play for the 21s, neither did Bentito Mentato as well. Again, very highly regarded young players to come through. Could they be given some minutes as well against Bournemouth? Who knows? But we need to kind of keep an eye on it. So while one door closes, potentially another one opens. It's just a shame, because, like I said, the Europa League's the kind of key for us for the rest of the season, because the Premier League's effectively, it is what it is. We're not going to necessarily get relegated, thankfully. And, we're not going to get into Europe or anything like that as well. But yeah, give us your thoughts on the injury updates in the comments. Now let's move on to some transfer news. So Fabrizio Romano, I've obviously brought you the news the other day regarding Ederson, but he's come out again kind of clarifying what he was saying, meaning regarding the Ederson situation. So he said that Manchester United's appreciation in Ederson is 100% confirmed. United like him and consider him a top midfielder. They believe he's the kind of perfect player for Amorim. Atalanta want more than 40 to 50 million euros. United know Atalanta will not make it easy. They won't negotiate now. It's something for the summer, and there will be more clubs interested as well. So Romano suggesting that this could be one that drags on all summer because Atalanta are not an easy team to kind of negotiate with, and they want to wait to the summer because if they get interest from other clubs, that's obviously going to increase his kind of value and his asking price, and that's what they'll want. That's what all teams want when it comes to selling players, is you want competition, you want other clubs to get involved so you can have a bit of a bidding war going on, because then that way you can get the maximum price available for your player. So that's one that's going to be, hopefully not too drawn out, but could drag on in the kind of summer. 34 to 39 million pounds as well for Edison. I think that's a decent price for someone that they clearly think is a good fit for Ruben Amorim's system. He has legs in midfield. That's what we're kind of not necessarily missing. Ugarte does give us a little bit of that, but he's seen as like I think a really good partner for Ugarte in midfield, or someone you could rotate between like Edison and Bruno in midfield as well. Like I could see that kind of working for certain games as well. Would give us a lot of athleticism, energy, intensity. Remember, they're the words that we're kind of looking for regarding players. But it's definitely one to keep an eye on. But yeah, give us your thoughts below on Edison. Now, Manchester United are keeping tabs on the Atalanta striker Matteo Retegui, and they could look to make a move for him. The striker is reportedly valued at 60 million euros, and United currently have the finances to get the deal done. That's around 51 million pounds for those that work in pounds as well. So that again came from another Italian outlet via Court Offside, and it's not the first story or the first time we've been linked by Italian media regarding Retegui. I've no idea the credibility. It's Italian kind of sources. So I would say initially take it with a pinch of salt. But the news I brought you the other day from Nico, who's actually a fairly decent source for Italian news as well, was saying a very similar thing. So this is what he said. I think it was Wednesday. I might be wrong. But it was during the week, saying that a Manchester United scout was present at the San Siro Stadium to watch the game between Milan and Atalanta to monitor midfielder Edison and striker Retegui. United have already approached the agents in the last weeks to open talks. Now, obviously, since this story came out, obviously Romano has confirmed that we have held talks with Edison's agents as well. So, there's no smoke without fire there. This could be one that's potentially, one to keep an eye on. Would be obviously a lot more expensive because for the striker situation, obviously we know the number one choice is at the moment Liam Dilap. Liam Dilap's valued at 30 million pounds with this release clause. Obviously, the report going back was saying 60 million euros, which is about 51 million pounds as well. So obviously, he's a lot more, expensive than Dilap. Maybe that would be one that we would require sales for. And again, Atalanta going to be very difficult to deal with as well. So this is not one that you're going to get done early if the stories are to be believed. But 44 appearances, 26 goals, 6 assists. I like him. I think he looks a really, really kind of good striker. Very good kind of very good stats as well in terms of what you would be expecting for a striker. Touches in the penalty area, progressive passes received. He's a very good kind of player and is a goal scorer as well. So definitely one to kind of pay attention to. But I'm going to say let's wait for a bit more credibility regarding that as well, because the main player striker-wise we're linked with is Liam Dilap. Latest there coming from Give Me Sports saying that Manchester United are being made to wait on whether Liam Dilap sees them as his next club at a time when Chelsea are quietly confident the deal is already swinging in their favour. So, and this begs the question, I suppose, what are the alternatives to Dilap? Because, obviously the Osman deal. We'll go through some update next from Romano regarding that. We know we're not getting Osman. Gyökeres isn't linked with us at all at the moment. Who's the alternative to Dilap? They seem to be putting all their eggs in that kind of basket, which concerns me that if we don't get Dilap, what's the kind of alternative striker? Maybe someone like Retegui, who would be obviously a little bit more expensive, but does that become more of a reality? Been linked with Matteo, but he's going to be around the same sort of price as Dilap and has the same goals and assists this season as Dilap. So it's one of these, isn't it? We'll have to kind of wait and see what happens. Now, in terms of Osman, Romano said the following on why Victor Osman's transfer to the Premier League is unlikely. He said he wants the same salary he's earning at Napoli, so 12 million euros net plus commissions and his 75 million release clause. No English club is ready to pay him 12 million pounds net. And that was the same as when I brought you the stories like a few months ago when Romano said exactly the same thing. It works out for him to get that net about 350 grand a week that we'd have to pay Osman for that because of the UK tax system, and we're just not going to go anywhere near those sort of deals. I don't think. I think we would pay people the contracts and stuff. I don't think we're going to sign players on that money. I think if we signed Osman, he was on a bit of was prepared to take a pay cut, but then came, proved himself, and earned that kind of pay increase like we did with Bruno, then maybe that would be cool. But I don't think we're just going to slap all these sort of that sort of wage on new signings because of the risk involved when you're bringing in new players that you just don't know whether their shirt's going to weigh too heavy on them, whether they're going to perform the way that they do, whether they'll get that big money like we've seen with some players in the past, and then they end up just putting their slippers on and not performing the way that they do when they're hungrier for that kind of that kind of contract. So, but that makes sense. But again, it's Ornstein said a similar thing as well. So that's the reason why Osman's not coming, because of the wages, which was, probably always going to be the case in truth, unless he was prepared to take a pay cut, which he obviously isn't. And, and that's it. That's the way it works. Now, another player that we might be signing, though, so from one player we haven't signed or aren't signing to another one that we might be, which is Kana-Biyik. So Manchester United have made contact to sign Enzo Cannabek as talent for the future from Le Havre. Discussions ongoing for 18-year-old striker to join Ineos-owned side Lausanne, not sealed yet, but in talks. So those kind of reports regarding this player over the last couple of days confirmed now by Fabrizio Romano as kind of true, that United are looking at this kid and they are looking to send him out, sign him for United, send him out on loan to Lausanne, and then obviously see how he kind of progresses from there as well, which is a good kind of statement. I think it's good that we're going for all of these young players and also getting them as well. Like a lot of these kind of young players around that we're scouting. Obviously, Christopher Vivell's got his fingerprints all over these sort of deals as well. But also signing them as well, which is a positive for me. Not just linked with them or interested in them, actually getting them through the door. But then also thinking about their career progression as well. There's a really good piece actually on Sekou Kone. Scored an unbelievable goal last night for the 21s. Let me know what you think about that in the comments if you watched it. Really good piece around Sekou Kone in the Manchester Evening News, where they were talking about like his development, what they've been doing behind the scenes, working on him. They've been talking about the coaches learning French, him learning English, letting him settle into the area. So there is a clear kind of pathway, I think, for and kind of extra care and attention it seems to be that they're doing behind the scenes with the young players. And obviously signing a player like that, sending them out on loan, would kind of suggest that they're not just looking at bringing these players in, they're also looking at how they can develop them the best as well. So that's something I've noticed as well, the attention to detail with what's actually happening with these players. Like there's a thought process behind it. They're not just going out and grabbing all these players and then chucking them in and then thinking, well, now what do we do with all these players we've got, because we've got too many. That actually looking at their career paths as well, which is, I think, way different to what we've kind of been used to. There's actually some thought going on behind the scenes, it seems. But let me know what you think about that in the comments. And then obviously the main player that we're looking very likely to sign is Cunha. So the latest on him is that Matheus Cunha is now close to reaching an agreement with Manchester United regarding personal terms. Signing bonus and agent fees are being discussed. It is said to not be a huge issue as the deal advances. Once this is agreed, deal should move rapidly. That came from Sully Talks, who's been, fairly good behind the scenes and, definitely want to pay attention to at the moment with like injury news and, stuff like that going on. And then more reports from South America saying that Matheus Cunha is very close to completing his move to Manchester United. The negotiations have advanced a lot and are now in the final stage. And Romano said Matheus Cunha is very close to joining Manchester United. So that deal is kind of clawing its way along nicely, where all signs are pointing to that being a deal that's going to be done potentially before the transfer window even opens and the season ends, which I still think is a massive positive, because I can't remember the last time someone that we kind of did that. Someone mentioned in the comments yesterday that the first time they thought might have been the Nani, Hargreaves and Anderson season, where we got like those three sort of players done very early in the transfer window, which was like 07, 08, I think it was. So, that's insane that it's, been that long since we potentially bought somebody in before the season's even ended, which is a massive positive for me personally. But give us your thoughts on that in the comments below. So let's go through some exit news. So Matheus Cunha's arrival could force Manchester United to sell a star player. There's a compelling argument Mainu or Garnacho could be sold, given that they would be luxury backup options. Rich Fay stating the obvious there, what we already know. If we sign Cunha or we bring in players in, we're going to have to sell players. That's PSR rules. We obviously know that we're, we know the story about Mainu and Garnacho. Garnacho looks like he might be one that could be sold. Mainu looks like he's going to sign a new contract. That's the latest. But obviously, until anything's signed and sealed and delivered, who knows? Ruben Amram, though, in his press conference, when asked specifically on exits, on whether he knows which players he wants to keep, he said, I have an idea, but things can change. And then he was asked on whether on whether he can change his mind on which players he wants to keep. He said, look, Casemiro is a good example. He wasn't playing and then he performed well in the last few games. I like to change my mind. I just want to win and field the best players. So Amram saying, look, he's got an idea at the moment of who he wants to sell and who he wants to kind of keep. But there is the opportunity for players to prove him wrong and actually come back into the first team as well. So I would say, going off of Amram's words, nothing's quite set in stone yet, although I do think they are making plans for exits and stuff, because there will be some players that he definitely knows he doesn't want to keep or he doesn't think he can work with as well. But obviously citing Casemiro as the prime example to say that he was out of his plans. It wasn't in his thinking when he first came in, and then Casemiro's worked his way back into the team and obviously has been performing really well recently as well. So Ramon's like, look, that's what I want. I want players to prove me wrong, because I just want the best players available on the team as well, which is a fair shout. And obviously we do have some big games coming up as well in the Europa League, so he can't come out and say, yep, I know exactly which players I'm going to sell and which ones I'm going to keep, and no one's going to change my mind, because it will demotivate some players as well. So he's given like a bit of a box ticking answer there as well. Now on that though, Fabrizio Romano said, what I'm hearing from sources is that Marcus Rashford and Antony are both not expected to play for Manchester United next season. On Rashford, Romano said that Rashford and Villa want to continue together and they are happy together. Unai Emery's relationship with him is good, but it depends on the money. There are more clubs interested in Rashford. So I think Villa's situation is, depending on whether they get Champions League or not, will depend on whether, because they've got Asensio on loan and obviously Rashford on loan. I don't think they'll be able to afford both without Champions League, but if they did, maybe they could afford to buy both, and then it might become a decision between Rashford and Asensio, and then, who are they going to kind of pick from there as well. But obviously there are reports that Rashford would wait for his kind of wait to make his decision as well, because he's holding off for like maybe Barcelona. Barcelona, I think, is his dream destination. So we'll need to see how that kind of plays out. But Romano confirming that neither of them are going to come back to United in the summer, from what he's been told. On Antony, Mike McGrath, from who's a good source, said that Real Betis are preparing an offer to extend Antony's loan for another season. That's not the first time we've heard that as well. Romano also confirmed the same thing, saying Real Betis would try to keep Antony next season, maybe a loan, but for sure he's expected to leave, and the expectation is not for Rashford. Expectation is not for Rashford and him to be part of the squad next season. So again, Romano kind of confirming that maybe Real Betis will try and do a season-long loan for Antony, which actually, when you kind of look at it, might not be a bad shout as well. I know, obviously, selling him this summer would be good, but from the PSR perspective, right, because we still owe a lot of money. I think his book value is around 30 million, just to make things easy. So we want to sell him for around 35 million, and that only generates a £5 million profit. But if you loaned him again for another season, and they pay most of his wages, Betis, maybe with a £5 million loan fee next year with an obligation to buy. So next year, his book value will decrease, so you could sell him for and make more money on Antony by doing a loan with an obligation to buy next season, depending on the fees. Obviously, we don't know what the fees and the prices are going to do as well. So that's actually, maybe not beyond the realms of impossible, but it would depend on the price and the bids that we get externally from Antony, because we might get a big offer from another team in Italy or Saudi or somewhere like that we would be prepared to to accept. But if not, loaning him out actually from a PSR perspective might not be a bad shout, because we still owe a lot of money on Antony's book value from PSR perspective. So a sale even for 35 million doesn't necessarily generate that much money or profit for United because of how much we still owe. But next year it would. So we'd actually probably make more money from Antony if we sold him next season than we would this season. But it depends on the fees and the figures and stuff. But there's an argument to make there as well that actually wouldn't be a bad shout. But it all depends on the figures, doesn't it? But give us your thoughts on that in the comments. And then let's go for the goalkeeper news. So Manchester United are interested in veteran goalkeeper Jan Oblak. Atletico Madrid would be willing to sell him for around 25 million euros. Now, if you're looking for, you know, an experienced goalkeeper to come in, you know, I mean, he's not exactly that old neither. What is he, 32 now, I think? I think he's a goalkeeper that's been around for a while that isn't as old as what some might think. Yeah, 32, which is not that old for a goalkeeper. You know, would be a decent price as well. Now, that came from a fairly decent Spanish outlet as well. You know, that's not a bad option, in my opinion. Someone experienced to come in, you know, good goalkeeper as well. Would probably be more of a number one choice, though, I would suggest, rather than a backup to Onana. But if you want competition, then, you know, getting Oblak in is not the worst idea that I've heard. You know, it's just obviously the age profile and stuff, but yeah, one to pay attention to. Keep an eye on that one for you. And then another Spanish outlet who's apparently quite credible. Don't know the credibility myself, but they were suggesting that Manchester United have contacted Espanyol goalkeeper Joan Garcia's entourage to make him an offer. Garcia has a 25 million euro release clause, which will rise to 30 million for the last 15 days of the transfer window. So that's really interesting. If he's got a release clause of about 25 million euros, then I would be all over that deal. He's a very, very talented young goalkeeper as well. You know, very highly regarded as well. And for that sort of price, if he's got that release clause, and obviously it quickens your negotiations as well, so it could be a deal you could get done. Remember, we're looking to believe around the £20 million mark for a goalkeeper that would fit within that kind of budget as well. So that's one to pay attention to. However, Dylan McBennett has kind of dismissed those stories, saying despite reports today suggesting Manchester United have been in contact for Joan Garcia, at this moment in time, they are yet to make any contact for the player. So that becomes a case of who do you believe? Dylan McBennett is a decent source as well. I don't know the credibility of the Spanish one, though, so that just becomes a case of he said, she said, in my opinion. So we'll need to keep an eye on that one as well. But, you know, Joan Garcia is on the list of goalkeepers that we have been linked with before in the past, and if he's got a 25 million euro release clause, that's a really interesting potential option. But I'm sure there'll be other teams interested in him as well for that sort of price. But yeah, we'll have to kind of wait and see how it all plays out with the goalkeeper situation. But give us your thoughts on that in the comments. Give us your thoughts on all the other topics discussed in today's video, because that's you all up to date with the latest Manchester United news and transfer news. Smash a like on the video on your way up. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. See you in the next one.